gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. It is Thursday, which means we have wide receivers, tight ends, and defenses for you today. In this one, I'm going to go over the top 32 options at wide receiver. We're going to give you your ones, your twos, and also some flex considerations. There has never been a more important time to make the best decisions for your fantasy team because every win matters as we head towards those fantasy playoffs. We want to make sure we have all the info, and that is why you are here. I'm going to break down every single option that I go over and tell you why I think they should or should not be in your lineups and give you some reasons for that. Now, before we hop into the stats, info, and all the fun, please drop a like on the video if you find yourself enjoying the content, and then make sure, if you have not done so already, to subscribe to the channel. That keeps the channel moving forward, continues to help us grow. We just beat our goal of 500. We are on our way to 1,000. So if you are not a sub yet, you can help us on that journey, and we would gladly appreciate the company. In case you are unaware, I do have rankings shorts coming out on Saturday mornings. These take into account all of the new information that we have got throughout the week, so it gives you a peek into my mind based on what that information tells us where these players have shifted. So if you have 5 extra minutes, make sure you check those out. Drop a like while you're there, and now let's get into Week 12's wide receiver rankings. In at number 1, I have Stefon Diggs. He went from 26 targets over the previous 2 games to just 5 looks against the Browns. That was his lowest target total of this season. The Bills are not going to need to feed him against the Lions. They're going to crush him either way, but I think they do anyways. I expect a monster game here for Diggs. Davante Adams is up next at number 2. He has been the most productive wide receiver in the entire league over the last 3 weeks. In that time, he's racked up 44 targets, 413 yards, and 5 tutties. Seattle is allowing just the 3rd most points per game to the position, so you'd think you'd have to worry. However, Adams just smoked the number 2 team in that category and the number 1 team as well, so there is no reason to worry about his performance. Up next at number 3, I have Tyreek Hill. He saw his targets drop for the 2nd consecutive week. He got just 6 opportunities against Cleveland prior to Miami's bye. The Texans allow the 3rd most yards per reception, and we know that Hill is a big play machine, so even if the Fins don't air it out much, because let's be honest, they're probably not going to have to, I think that Hill gets his numbers. Justin Jefferson drops to the top of tier 2. He's in at 4. He finally ran into that bump in the road, slowing his historic pace with just 33 yards on 5 targets against the Cowboys. The Patriots are not going to make it easy on him to bounce back, but I cannot see another game where Jet just disappears. I think the Vikings are going to make it a point to feed him the rock as they attempt to regain their dignity. And that's going to be quite an affair to try to do that. CeeDee Lamb is my next man up. He rounds out my top 5. He had a pretty quiet game against the Vikings because all Dallas had to do was let Tony Pollard touch the ball and good things were going to happen. I expect a close game here against the Giants with massive NFC East implications, and I think Lamb is going to be called on plenty to help ignite that passing attack. DeAndre Hopkins is next up at 6. He has been able to keep the good times rolling even without Kyler Murray over the last 2 games. In that time, he's reeled in 19 balls for 189 yards. Now, if Kyler is back, his upside is massive in a potential shootout with the Chargers. And if not, he is probably still good for 70 more yards, and he can still score on any given play. T. Higgins is next up. He's at 7. He must have heard me gassing him up in my buy-sell video, so I hope you bought into him last week with a cracked window at a decent price, because if you did not, that opportunity is now gone. I think Higgins follows up his awesome 148-yard performance with another excellent showing against the Titans. They allow the 3rd most points per game to the position. To the top of tier 3, it is A.J. Brown sitting there at 8. He has seen his floor shrink over the last 2 weeks as he continues to deal with that ankle injury. Now, they said it was not serious, but serious or not, it has definitely affected his play and his production. The Packers allow just 192 yards per game through the air. That is 5th best in the NFL. So you are hoping that Brown can end his 2-game scoreless streak in this one. Mike Evans is up next at 9. He will see his target share come back after getting just 6 looks against the Hawks in week number 10. Fresh off a bye, I think Evans takes advantage of a Cleveland secondary that allows over 11 yards per completion. That is 4th most in the NFL. I've been saying this for a couple weeks, but I am on Tampa Bay still, even after their brutal start. I think the Bucs show why here. Deebo Samuel rounds out my top 10. He posted his biggest game of the year since week 4, busting that 30-plus yard touchdown run, while he showcased his elite vision and speed en route to an overall wide receiver 6 finish. More importantly, he saw the most targets that he has since way back in week number 6. I don't think the Saints are scary in the secondary, so I think Deebo has a great chance to post his best back-to-back finishes of the season. My 11th ranked wideout is Amari Cooper. He exploded against the Bills, compiling 12 targets, 8 catches, and 113 yards to go along with his pair of scores. I think Cleveland is likely to struggle moving the ball on the ground in this game. So that means that Cooper is once again going to see a massive target share. In games where he's had 7 targets or more, he has never finished lower than wide receiver 24, and he's posted 5 wide receiver 1 finishes with them. So we like our odds here. To round out my wide receiver 1s for week 12 is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He gets Buffalo. He should be able to take advantage of a Bills defense that has struggled in the secondary over the last 2 games. The potential return of Jameson Williams will shrink his floor a little bit, but I think his ceiling is still among the best in the league. To the top of tier 4, it is Gabe Davis. He had a solid performance against Cleveland. It was his first non-boom or bust output of the year. I think the former is likely in a top 5 matchup against Detroit. The Lions allow nearly 32 points a game to wideouts. Jalen Waddle is my 14th ranked guy. He could fall victim to the game script here. I think that is our biggest fear as owners. And he's had just 12 looks over the last 2 games as well. But you are not benching a guy with his per touch upside, and Houston's defense is susceptible to Waddle's big play ability. Terry McLaurin is up next. He gets a massive boost with the news that this is now Taylor Heinicke's team. He's averaging 9 targets in the last 3 games, and the Falcons allow the 2nd most points per game to pass catchers. I think Scary Terry should eat in this matchup. Tier number 5 starts with Chris Olave. He got back into the top 10 for the first time since way back in week number 3, catching 5 balls for 102 yards to go along with that score against the Rams. If you are going to beat the Niners, and that looks really difficult right now, you're going to have to do it through the air. So Olave, I think, is destined to see his targets spike after only 11 total opportunities in his last 2. Christian Kirk is in at number 17. He has balled out in his last 2, racking up 21 targets for 181 yards and 3 scores with back-to-back top 5 finishes. I think the Ravens are likely going to shut down the running game here, and that offers big time opportunity for Kirk to build on his impressive run and take advantage of a top 7 matchup. Tyler Lockett is my 18th ranked guy. He has scored in 3 straight games while seeing only 18 targets, so his efficiency has been off the charts. Vegas is allowing the 5th most tutties through the air, so Lockett is set to make it 4 straight. His teammate DK Metcalf is next. He's produced just fine in his last 3, but I think you would expect more with the 25 targets that he has received. The Raiders give him a great chance to make good on those opportunities. Keenan Allen rounds out my top 20. He is back in the rankings after a very long hiatus. He was able to suit up for just the 3rd time this season, and it was business as usual for him. He racked up 94 yards on 8 targets against the Chiefs, but more importantly, he looked healthy and he did not appear to suffer any setbacks, unlike Mike Williams. He's now going to be the locked-in wide receiver 1 against Arizona. They allow nearly 250 passing yards per game. To tier 6, Brandon Ayuk sits atop of it at 21. The bad news is that he only caught 2 passes against Arizona. The good news is both of them went for touchdowns, and he's now caught 5 tutties in the last 5 games for 350 yards. You are continuing to roll him out there in hopes that the hot streak continues, and there's really no reason to think that it won't. There are a ton of mouths to feed in San Francisco, but Ayuk seems to be one of the first in line. Courtland Sutton is up at 22. He was able to take advantage of a solid matchup and health issues in the wide receiver room, posting his best finish since back in week number 4. He's got a great opportunity to keep this momentum going against Carolina. They allow nearly 28 points a game to wide receivers. That is 11th most in the league. Chris Godwin is my 23rd ranked wideout. He finally broke his scoreless streak prior to the bye, and he used it to bake his top finish of the season. He is averaging 10 targets per game over his last 5 games, and I will always buy that type of volume from Tom Brady. My last wide receiver 2 in week 12 is Michael Pittman Jr. He gets the perfect get-right game here against the Steelers. They are the league's worst in yards per completion, passing scores allowed, and points per game to the position. Pittman has not found pay dirt since back in week number 1. If he is going to turn it around, and God, please let him turn it around, this is the game he is going to do it in. At the top of tier 7, I have Devonta Smith. He has seen his usage increase with A.J. Brown, clearly not at 100%, and he has posted a decent stat line with those opportunities. I think you have to bet on that to continue in this high-powered Philly offense. Flying up my rankings at 26 is Christian Watson. He's seen 15 targets in his last 2, which is just 1 more than Allen Lazard. So while the 5 touchdowns have been absolutely great, I think this is still a 1A and 1B situation. I'm not going to blame you for chasing the points here, but Green Bay wideouts have been fickle all season long, so just be aware of that. Jacoby Myers is up at 27. He should be able to rebound against a weak Vikings secondary. Minnesota allows the 6th most points per game to the position, so even the 6 targets that he has received over the last 2 weeks will be valuable. Tyler Boyd headlines tier number 8. He continues to disappoint managers in games that Jamar Chase has not been in, but he has posted at least 40 plus in the last 2 games. The Titans are possibly his last chance to make an impact before Chase's return, so I will buy the decent volume in a great matchup. My 29th ranked wide receiver is Allen Lazard. I think owners are probably worried about the Christian Watson explosion over the last couple, and rightfully so. But there is a light at the end of this tunnel. Lazard still has 10 or more looks in 2 out of the last 3 games, and the rookie has topped out at just 8 thus far. Lazard is going to remain a key part of this passing attack, so do not panic. Darius Slayton rounds out my top 30. He paid off my pickup and play call on him last week, and he's been a wide receiver 12 and wide receiver 22 finisher in the last 2, posting 181 yards and a score in those games. Dallas's defense will certainly make it tough, but after 10 targets against Detroit, I think he clearly sees opportunities. George Pickens is up next at 31. He has now scored in 3 out of the last 4 games, and he looks to be the wideout to own in Pittsburgh. The matchup here is brutal, but someone is going to need to catch passes from Kenny Pickett, and the connection with Pickens is likely the answer. The last wide receiver I have ranked in week 12 is Treylon Burks, who needs to be 100% roster right now, and he could be a hit down the stretch for teams in need of a boost at the position. His usage has been elite, so even in this low volume passing attack for Tennessee, he has the ability to contribute. Some wide receivers that just missed the cut are Drake London, he travels to Washington, Joshua Palmer traveling to Arizona, Curtis Samuel, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Rondale Moore. And that is everything for my week 12 wide receiver rankings. Hope you learned something. Let me know what you thought about the rankings. Drop a comment or question down below. I absolutely love the engagement. It is one of the main reasons that I do these videos. If you enjoy the content today, crush that like button for me. That continues to help grow the channel. And subscribe if you haven't yet so that you do not miss a thing. This is Relentless Press. I am your host, Abraham Opatz, and I will see you